You want to connect with people, but something invisible keeps getting in the way. You enter the room ready to meet people, not just casually, but with a real openness to finding someone you can think with, build with, or genuinely connect with. The conversations begin easily enough. People smile, they respond, they ask the usual questions. Nothing seems obviously wrong, and yet, without fully understanding why, you keep encountering a kind of invisible limit. You move toward depth. You offer sincerity, but the space does not seem prepared to receive it. You assume you are stepping into a field of possible connection, while something more cautious seems to be governing the interaction. You might feel like you are the problem, but you are not. At the time, you may not know how to name what is happening. You only feel a vague friction, a slight sense of not quite landing. The conversation continues, but it does not open. The warmth is there, but it does not deepen. You are showing up as though shared interest might lead naturally into shared depth, while the group is still orienting around something more preliminary and more guarded. You've been taught to interpret moments like this in superficial ways. They say the issue is confidence, chemistry, charisma, or small talk. They assume that social ease naturally develops into real connection if you just say the right things and relax enough. But that is not actually what is happening. What you are feeling is a clue to a hidden structure in the physics of social dynamics. Beneath ordinary conversation, groups are governed first by questions of safety, familiarity, belonging, and social placement. And until you can see that layer, you cannot see how to align to the space. You are moving toward collaboration where others are still negotiating comfort, moving toward depth where others are still managing uncertainty, moving toward genuine meeting where the room is still deciding whether anything genuine is safe. In this video, you will learn to decode the physics of social dynamics so that you can navigate them with power. If you value excellence, intelligence, or high performance, this video is especially for you. Many people assume that sincerity, intelligence, or shared ambition will naturally lead to meaningful connection. But in social environments, those qualities are not the first things being sorted for. Once you understand those dynamics, you will stop blaming yourself for social mismatches. You will stop mistaking surface warmth for openness, shared interest for alignment, or polite participation for actual availability. You will begin to understand how to use your sincerity strategically as a filter for social alignment. By the end, a key insight will come into view. You will understand why these interactions feel the way they do, how to recognize the invisible signals early, and how to draw the right people toward you without betraying yourself. Before we continue, it is important to understand the source of the information you are about to receive. Unlike many other presentations, what you will hear does not originate in an external authority, a philosophical package, or AI-generated mimicry. You deserve better than that, and as a sovereign self, you will receive better here. The knowledge you are about to receive begins in a deeper reality already present within you. There is a realm of insight that every sovereign self can access. Self-knowledge is the key to seeing what is happening around you. So prepare to see what your sovereign identity reveals about the hidden dynamics of social life. Part 1. Why the group didn't receive you. Consider a familiar kind of moment. You are placed, even briefly, in a leadership role. You are meant to guide a group into an activity, and you decide, almost innocently, to skip the warm-up rituals. You introduce the concept, you move directly into the task, you begin, and then you feel it, a subtle resistance. Not overt hostility, not necessarily conscious rejection, but a low-grade reluctance in the room, a lack of receptivity, a faint awkwardness that thickens into tension. People comply, perhaps, yet the compliance feels thin. They are not with you. They are not relaxed. They are not yielded. Later, you learn that someone reported they do not want to do that activity again, and you replay the moment trying to locate what failed. Was it the wrong activity? The wrong framing? The wrong audience? Were they strangers? Were they uninterested? Those questions are not wrong, but they do not go deep enough, because the real issue is not the activity. It is the fact that the group never received the signals required to feel safe. Human beings do not default to openness in unfamiliar social space. They default to guardedness. That guardedness is not a moral defect. It is an evolved strategy. In a room of unvetted people, the nervous system quietly asks, "Who is here? What do they want from me? What will it cost me if I misunderstand them? Do I need to protect myself? Will I be embarrassed? Will I be judged? Will I be pressured? Will I be exposed?" Small talk, for all its superficiality, is often the bridge that answers these questions without requiring anyone to say them explicitly. It is not primarily about exchanging information. It is about exchanging reassurance. And this explains something that can confuse people who are naturally outcome-oriented or idea-oriented. What you experience as efficient can feel to others like unsafe. If you enter a room and move directly into the activity, especially an activity that asks for participation, vulnerability, or performance, the group may experience the absence of small talk not as admirable focus, but as a missing safety protocol. They have not yet located you. They do not know what kind of leader you are. They do not know whether you will embarrass them, whether you will notice their mistakes, whether you will interpret their silence as stupidity, whether you will punish their hesitation, whether you will demand too much too quickly, so they remain guarded. Notice what this implies. In many ordinary group settings, the group is not primarily organized around the stated objective. It is organized around the management of social risk. The event may advertise a topic, but the deeper function is often relational. People come to feel connected, to feel normal, to feel included, to feel safe in the presence of others. This means that if you assume people have arrived to pursue a topic with intrinsic motivation, as though it were a professional conference of specialists, you may be treating the group as if it were a collaboration space when it is actually a connection space. And that mismatch creates friction. This is why icebreakers exist. This is why mingling exists. This is why introductions balloon into credentialing, reassurance. Here's why this matters. You're in the right place. You don't need to be perfect. We're glad you're here. To the outcome-oriented mind, this can feel absurdly redundant, almost like persuading people to consent to an activity they already signed up for. Yet to the nervous system of a guarded crowd, it is not redundant at all. It is the process by which the room becomes inhabitable. Now here is the pivot that matters for the deeper theme of this video. If you carry within you a strong sense of identity, not identity as ego performance, but identity as inner alignment, you may naturally underestimate how much reassurance others need before they can participate. You may not require small talk to feel safe. You may be able to enter directly into depth, into action, into experiment, into risk, because your internal status is not being negotiated by the room. But many people are not operating that way. They are negotiating significance constantly, and therefore they are exquisitely sensitive to cues that imply judgment, hierarchy, exclusion, or exposure. So what went wrong is not that you failed to deliver content. What went wrong is that you did not supply the room with enough relational safety for their nervous systems to leave defense mode. And once you can see that, you can enter a room with greater power. You may still dislike small talk. You may still prefer depth. But now you understand that small talk is not merely a matter of politeness. It is one of the primary ways groups stabilize status uncertainty long enough for shared interaction to become possible. Still, even if you understand how to signal safety, a deeper question remains. How do you do that without collapsing yourself? Without compressing your energy, muting your depth, or conforming so completely to the room that you lose your own center? What is missing is alignment. And to understand alignment, we must go deeper into the next layer. Part 2, how to skip the small talk. Once you recognize that guardedness is the default posture in unfamiliar social space, you start to see small talk less as empty words and more as a social technology whose function is to reduce perceived risk. But the moment you see that, an obvious complication appears. Sometimes people do skip small talk, and it works. In certain contexts, you can walk right up to a stranger and speak in an intensely specific way, and the conversation does not collapse into awkwardness. It actually becomes alive. So the question becomes, What are the conditions under which small talk is unnecessary? Once you understand the fundamental physics of social dynamics, you can begin moving beyond the ring of social safety with intention. I will show you 3 strategies for group alignment. First strategy, use expertise as a fast-track signal of safety. Imagine a scene that is almost comically unlike the awkward group activity scenario. 2 specialists meet in a setting where the shared domain is clear. A conference hallway, a lab tour, a technical workshop, a professional forum. One person walks up and says without preface, "I've been fighting with electrode deposition on an organic substrate. Did you ever solve that adhesion issue?" And the other person answers as if this is perfectly normal. Why does this work? Not because specialists are unusually rude, and not because they lack social needs, but because domain-specific speech can function as an instant credential. It effectively communicates, "I belong here. I'm not faking my way into this space. I'm not going to be threatened by your competence, and I'm not going to threaten you with mine. We are already playing the same game." In that context, the safety that small talk normally provides has already been supplied by the environment in the shared frame. The conversation does not begin at ground zero. The room itself and the conference, the lab, the workshop, acts like a pre-filtered container. But notice the reverse. If someone speaks above your head or speaks in jargon you cannot parse, the immediate emotional response in many people is not warmth. It is not safety. It is often a subtle contraction, intimidation, irritation, suspicion, self-consciousness. A sense that the other person has a kind of power you do not, and that you might be exposed in their presence. That reaction is not about the content. It is about status. When you cannot track what someone is saying, you are no longer participating as an equal in a shared field of meaning. You are positioned as an outsider, a novice, a dependent, or a spectator. And the nervous system treats that as risk. Will I be judged? Will I be made to feel stupid? Will I be required to perform? So expertise can create safety between equals, but it creates a threat between unequals. The same mechanism produces opposite outcomes depending on whether the other person experiences themselves as inside the field with you or outside it. This is why many people who carry competence learn, often unconsciously, to soften their entry. They learn to speak in generalities, to lower the technical temperature, to offer translation, not as a concession to lesser minds, but as a way of preserving relational ease. They are not merely being polite. They are preventing an unintended status confrontation. And what people sometimes miss is that this is already an identity negotiation. It is a negotiation of significance. Who is higher? Who is lower? Who gets to lead the meeting? Who has to follow? Small talk frequently exists to prevent that negotiation from becoming humiliating. Second strategy, use tribal signals strategically. Now consider a different kind of safety signal. Not intellectual, but tribal. People are constantly scanning for signs that you share their symbolic world. The references you make, the names you drop, the moral vocabulary you assume, the jokes you laugh at, the words you use for the same social realities. These cues form a quick and dirty way of answering. Are you one of us? And this is why certain names can function like banners. In some circles, invoking a particular figure, a politician, a preacher, an academic authority, a cultural icon, is not merely mentioning a person, it is placing yourself inside a social map. It tells the room what kinds of loyalties you likely have, what kinds of values you likely prioritize, which kinds of people you likely mistrust, and which kinds of outsiders you might treat with disdain. The point is not whether those assumptions are fair. The point is that humans use shortcuts because ambiguity is costly. In uncertain social space, the nervous system prefers rapid categorization over slow discernment. It would rather misclassify than remain undefended. So tribal language functions as a second fast-track route to safety. You can feel safe with someone quickly if they sound like your people. But be careful, incorrect social signaling can trigger alarm bells in other people long before they have any real evidence that you are a threat. If you use language they associate with a rival tribe, their system may tighten almost immediately. Their spikes rise not because they have reasoned their way into distrust, but because their body has learned through experience that certain signals often come before conflict. This is why group settings that prioritize connection tend to avoid controversial topics. The avoidance is not always cowardice. It is often an implicit agreement to keep the room within the emotional bandwidth of safety. Religion and politics are not merely hot topics. They are tribal identifiers that can destabilize the truce. So the strategy is not to betray yourself, but to sequence yourself wisely. In spaces still governed by the search for safety, do not rush to display the tribal cues that invite premature categorization. Let steadiness come before signaling. Let relational safety come before contested identity. Let people encounter your substance before they file you into a social map. The goal is not concealment, but alignment. Create the conditions in which truth can be received without first being distorted by fear. Third strategy, pay attention to your own self-alignment. There are situations in which neither expertise nor tribe is doing the heavy lifting, and yet safety still appears quickly. You see it in groups gathered around a shared interest, even when there is a wide spread of competence and no obvious tribal uniform. Think of the spectator at the science conference who does not understand the jargon, yet instead of being repelled, they lean in, they stay, they listen. They are not threatened by the speed of the conversation because their inner posture is not defensive. It is curious. Their energy is already oriented toward the field. So what's happening? What's happening is that alignment of value can substitute for expertise and tribe as a foundation for safety. When someone is internally aligned to a subject, not performing interest because they should, not trying to impress, not following the crowd, but genuinely animated from within, they often recognize the same inner animation in someone else, and that recognition creates an immediate form of trust that is difficult to reduce to credentials or tribal markers. It is less, you are safe because you are certified, or you are safe because you belong to my tribe, and more. You are safe because I recognize something special in you that aligns with me. This is why two people can talk deeply with very little warm-up when both are genuinely engaged. The permission has already been granted by the shared orientation of desire. Their nervous systems are not negotiating, will you dominate me? They are sensing, we are facing the same horizon. And here is where understanding your nature as a sovereign self becomes foundational. When you understand that your value is anchored in the stable reality of the sovereign self, your significance is no longer outsourced to the group. This frees you to become more sensitive to alignment than to approval. You are less tempted to use the group as a mirror that grants worth, and more interested in whether the group can truly meet you in a field of shared creation. This shift changes the whole logic of social interaction. Instead of entering groups with the implicit aim of being accepted, you begin to enter with a clearer internal question. What is this gathering actually for? Is it for relational safety? Is it for shared play? Is it for collaboration toward an outcome? Is it for status reassurance? Is it for mutual witnessing? Asking these questions helps protect you from the suffering that comes from social misalignment. But how do you answer them? How do you avoid the traps of groups that do not have your best interests in mind? How do you find the groups that are truly aligned with you? To answer those questions, we must go deeper. Part 3. Sifting without contempt. Once you begin to see that different gatherings are organized around different implicit goals, some around safety, some around connection, some around collaboration, some around status, a new question emerges. How do you remain self-aligned inside those environments without either dissolving yourself into the herd or unconsciously scorning the herd for not being what you want it to be? That is the fork in the road. Many outcome-oriented people, once they realize that a group is primarily functioning as a safety-making organism, feel dissonance. They interpret the slow pace, the universal topics, the avoidance of risk, the resistance to depth as mediocrity. They withdraw inwardly, they judge, they detach with a faint superiority. But that reaction reveals something important. It reveals that their identity is still entangled with status. If you truly understood the function of the group, you would not be offended by it. you would recognize that a safety-making group is doing exactly what it was formed to do. It is not defective for failing to be a mastermind. It is not cowardly for refusing risk. It is performing a stabilizing function, calling a truce between divergent perspectives long enough for people to feel human together. Once you see that clearly, contempt becomes unnecessary. You no longer need to interpret a connection space as an intellectual wasteland. You can say, quite neutrally, this room is optimizing for safety, not for creation. And that clarity alone prevents resentment. But clarity also does something else. It empowers you to sift. The strategies we have seen for creating alignment within groups can also be used to sift between groups. First, there is the strategic use of small talk as a filter. Small talk, understood properly, is not merely for safety, it is reconnaissance. When you begin with universals, the weather, the venue, the speaker, shared human experiences, a compliment, an emotion, you are not surrendering depth. You are establishing a neutral bridge. And then from that bridge, you can make a bid. A bid is a small offering in the direction of something that genuinely interests you. It might be as subtle as, I've been thinking a lot about how AI is changing research workflows. Have you noticed that too? Or, I've been wrestling with a synthesis problem in my lab. Do you ever run into that? Or even, I've been rethinking how groups organize around status. It's fascinating. The point is not the content. The point is the response. If the other person's body leans in, if their eyes sharpen, if their language becomes animated, if they reciprocate with substance, you have found alignment. If they deflect, redirect, shrink, return to universal connection topics, or display subtle signs of discomfort, you have also found information. And this is where many people make a costly mistake. They treat that information as rejection, but it is not rejection, it is data. It is simply a signal that this particular interaction is not organized around the horizon you are facing. If you are self-aligned, if your identity is not dependent on being mirrored, you can receive that data without collapse. You can remain warm, remain generous, remain socially attuned, and simply recalibrate your expectations. You stop demanding from connection groups what only collaboration groups can provide, and that is freedom. Second, you can use expertise to filter alignment. When you are outcome-oriented, when you are scanning for leverage, for ideas, for expansion, for what is beyond the current norm, you are, in a sense, seeking risk. You are looking for what is not yet stabilized. You are interested in the edge. But connection-oriented groups are not seeking the edge. They are seeking equilibrium. This is why introducing controversial topics into a safety space often creates disproportionate tension. It is not necessarily that the ideas are wrong, it is that they destabilize the truce. They require individuals to reveal positions, to stake claims, to risk disagreement, and disagreement is experienced in that context as a threat to belonging. So when someone in a safety space responds defensively to a bold idea, it is not always because they are anti-intellectual. It is often because they are protecting the primary function of the group. And once you understand that, you can stop misreading the resistance. You can stop thinking, these people can't handle depth, and instead see, this environment is not designed for depth of that kind. Again, clarity replaces resentment. Third, and most fundamentally, your own self-alignment prepares you to align with others. When you understand who you are as a sovereign self, not in the sense of delusion, but in the sense of recognizing yourself as a creative center, your relationship to groups changes profoundly. If your sense of significance is unstable, you will enter groups looking to be seen, looking to be affirmed, looking to extract validation, looking to ensure that you matter. Every interaction becomes charged. Every neutral response feels like a referendum on your worth. But if your sense of significance is internally anchored, you no longer require the group to confer identity upon you. You enter asking different questions. What is this group optimizing for? Is this a safety space, a connection space, a collaboration space, a status space? Is there alignment here for my current vector of creation? If not, can I still contribute without misplacing my expectations? That shift alone dramatically reduces social confusion, because now you can walk into a large, inclusive gathering and think, this is a safety-making organism. You can offer warmth, universals, reassurance. You can enjoy the human texture of it, and you can refrain from trying to extract mastermind-level collaboration from it. And when you walk into a collaboration space, a vetted group aligned toward a project, you can drop small talk more quickly because the safety has already been pre-established through filtering. The group has already agreed on the horizon. This is what filtering and auditioning are about. Not exclusion for ego's sake, but discernment for creation's sake. If you are serious about building something, intellectually, artistically, economically, spiritually, you cannot allow every social environment to shape your direction. You must at some point curate the inner circle. You must decide who is aligned enough to co-create without constantly renegotiating safety. Once you understand the brevity of human life, the limited energetic bandwidth available to you, the finite hours in which you can bring something into being, you begin to see that spreading yourself thin across misaligned social spaces is costly. You stop going into every group hoping to be understood. You stop sitting in rooms waiting for the herd to suddenly pivot toward your horizon. Instead, you provide safety generously, where safety is the function, and you build deliberately where creation is the function. You can understand why you do not feel aligned with a group by understanding what that group is for. Some groups are inclusive by design, broad entry, minimal filtering, emphasis on common ground, avoidance of destabilizing difference. Mega churches, social clubs, neighborhood gatherings, casual meetups. These often function as truth spaces. Others are exclusive by design, heavy filtering, shared mission, implicit agreement on norms, strong alignment toward a project, masterminds, research teams, creative collaborations. These function as forward-driving organisms. Inclusive groups require more signaling of safety because they contain more variance. Exclusive groups require less signaling of safety because alignment has already been pre-validated. Confusion arises when you expect one to behave like the other. And status anxiety arises when you interpret misalignment as personal rejection rather than structural difference. Part 4. The social power of a sovereign self. We are now ready for the final turn in the spiral of understanding. When all of this becomes clear, something almost painful comes into view. You cannot afford to let every room determine your inner alignment. If you are a creative center, if you carry within you ideas, impulses, visions, and desires that require sustained focus, then you must become extraordinarily careful about where you seek sustenance. Safety groups can nourish you emotionally. They can restore you. They can remind you of your humanity, but they cannot substitute for aligned collaborators. And if you try to make them do that work, one of two things will happen. You will become frustrated with them, or you will begin to dilute yourself in order to fit them. The sovereign self posture is not antisocial, it is discerning. It says, I will not despise connection spaces for being connection spaces. I will not demand that they become something they were never organized to be. I will offer safety there freely, but I will also filter intentionally for those with whom I can build. Because creation requires alignment, and alignment requires selection, and selection requires the courage to accept that not every group is your group. Once this begins to settle, once you truly see the difference between safety spaces and creation spaces, between connection mode and outcome mode, between tribal reassurance and aligned collaboration, something surprising happens. You become less reactive. Not because you withdraw from people, not because you harden, but because you stop misinterpreting what is happening. So much social pain is not caused by hostility, it is caused by misreading. You enter a safety group expecting stimulation and leave thinking they do not value depth. You enter a collaboration space expecting warmth and leave thinking they are cold and transactional. You enter a tribe space unaware that tribal signals are being exchanged and accidentally trigger defensiveness without understanding why. But once you see the structure, you stop personalizing what is structural. You stop turning function into insult. And this is where identity and status finally come into focus. Because beneath almost every awkward interaction is an unspoken question. Where do I stand here? Am I above? Am I below? Am I inside? Am I outside? Am I safe? Am I valued? If your sense of significance is unstable, every group becomes a referendum. You scan for cues. You adjust your posture. You feel spikes of shame or superiority. You are constantly negotiating your worth in relation to the room. But if your identity is anchored, if you recognize yourself as a creative locus of consciousness with intrinsic directional force, then the question changes. It is no longer, where do I rank? It becomes, what is this environment optimized for? And do I want to participate in that function? That shift dissolves a tremendous amount of unnecessary suffering. You can sit in a safety group without demanding that it accelerate. You can join high performers without expecting them to coddle you. You can recognize tribal language without feeling compelled to prove or defend yourself. You can observe status games without needing to win them. And something else begins to happen, subtle but profound. Compassion increases. Because when you see people reaching for safety, you no longer interpret their caution as smallness. You see the vulnerability beneath it. You recognize that most people are not trying to dominate. They are trying not to be hurt. When you see someone lean into disagreement with excitement, you no longer interpret it automatically as aggression. You recognize that they may be optimized for discovery rather than reassurance. When you see someone recoil from intellectual risk, you do not need to shame them for lacking courage. You understand that the function they are protecting is connection, not innovation. In other words, clarity reduces contempt. And here the sovereign self becomes, paradoxically, gentler. Because once you know you are not dependent on every room for validation, you are free to give something without secretly needing something in return. You can enter a safety space and contribute warmth without secretly hoping it will evolve into a think tank. You can enter a collaboration space and contribute rigor without secretly hoping it will function like a family. You can leave a misaligned environment without bitterness because you no longer interpret misalignment as a rejection of your essence. Instead, you see it as vector divergence. Two arrows pointing in different directions are not enemies. They are simply not aligned. And this realization introduces a kind of peace that is not passive but precise. You no longer overexpose yourself in spaces that cannot hold your horizon. You no longer undershare yourself in spaces designed for depth. You no longer confuse connection with alignment. You no longer confuse status with significance. Because significance is internal, status is contextual, connection is functional, alignment is directional. And when those distinctions become clear, your social world begins to reorganize. You become more deliberate about who enters your inner circle, not from paranoia, but from stewardship. You recognize that creation within a finite life requires filtering. You recognize that too many conflicting energies in your immediate orbit will dilute your trajectory. And yet, at the same time, you become more relaxed in broad groups because you are no longer trying to extract destiny from them. You can appreciate them for what they are. Temporary fields of human reassurance, places where universals are exchanged, where safety is negotiated, where belonging is stabilized. You can offer safety there freely because you are no longer asking those spaces to fund your purpose. And perhaps most importantly, you stop oscillating between superiority and insecurity. You stop thinking, they are too shallow for me. You stop thinking, I am too strange for them. Instead, you ask, what is this space for? And that question alone is powerful enough to prevent years of social confusion. If you are going to live as a creative center, if you are going to take seriously the fact that you carry within you ideas, impulses, and directions that matter, then you must learn to discern without disdain, to filter without cruelty, and to align without apology. And once you do, relationships begin to change. You become less lonely because you are no longer expecting safety spaces to provide co-creation. You become less resentful because you are no longer demanding co-creation from those who came for connection. You become less anxious because you are no longer outsourcing your significance to the mood of the room. You become, in a deeply grounded way, sovereign, not above others, not cut off from others, but inwardly stable enough to enter, exit, collaborate, reassure, challenge, and create, without losing yourself in the process. And that, perhaps, is the deepest social consequence of recognizing yourself as a sovereign self. You stop asking every group to tell you who you are, and you begin choosing with clarity and compassion where you belong.